Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's another English studies class on the CTY Module College Ibadan, Oyo State e-learning portal. Our topic for today is under grammar, more about negative sentences. Grammar, more about negative sentences. This can be found on pages 197 and 198 of your NUSEC JS2 textbook. We've learned about the negative sentences before, so we are learning more about them. By the end of this lesson today, we should be able to make negative questions. We should be able to make negative questions and learn ways by which we can turn these questions, we can turn 10 questions into negative. In our previous class under grammar, we learned that negative sentence is the opposite of a positive sentence or statement. That we can make a negative sentence by adding not immediately after the auxiliary have, will, and are. We can also change a positive sentence that doesn't have an auxiliary into a negative sentence by adding an auxiliary like do, does, did. Because any sentence that doesn't have an auxiliary, we include do, does, did, and add not after them to make a negative sentence or statement. We also learned, if you remember, that we can also make a negative statement out of a command that we don't call it negative statement, or we rather call it prohibition. So the opposite of a command is a prohibition. So today we are looking at how to make negative questions. How to make negative questions. On page 197, I have some pair of sentences. We have sentence 1A is he going? B is isn't he? Is he not going? Is he going? To make a negative question out of this question, is he going, we have it as isn't he going, or is he not going? Has she arrived? Hasn't she arrived? Has she not arrived? Will they pick the rice? Won't they pick the rice? Will they not pick the rice? So let's analyze these sentences that I've just read. The questions I've just read. Is he going? Is an auxiliary verb. The subject in the question is he, and the verb is going. There is no object. Has she arrived? Has is an auxiliary. She is the subject. Arrived is the verb. Will they pick the rice? Will is the auxiliary. They is the subject. Pick is the verb. The rice is the object. The auxiliary is in the front of the subject, which means that the sentences can be answered by yes or no. So we can make negative questions in the following ways. There are two ways of turning these questions into negatives. One, we can add N apostrophe T to the end of the auxiliary. We can add nt to the end of the auxiliary. For example, isn't he going? Same as, that's the contracted form. The full form is he not going? Isn't he going? Hasn't she arrived? Hasn't she arrived? So this is one of the ways by which we can make negative questions. Isn't he going? By adding nt to the nt to the end of the auxiliary. Another way is to use the full form not instead of nt. We must add the not immediately after the subject of the sentence. Now remember when we just added the first rule I gave, that we can add nt, pronounce it as nt, or n apostrophe t to the end of the auxiliary. The auxiliary in that question is. So isn't, if you want to make it, if you want to use the contracted form of not, so it will be isn't he going, isn't, hasn't she arrived, won't they pick the rice. But when you want to use the full form of not, the full form not, instead of the contracted form, you now add the not immediately after the subject of the sentence. And the subject of these questions are he, she, and they. So the not will appear after the subject if you are using the full form not. But if you are using the contracted form, which is n apostrophe t, that's the short form, then it will be attached to the auxiliary to appear immediately after the auxiliary. So the second rule is, when you use the full form, the not, you place it immediately after the subject of the sentence. And examples are, is he not coming? Has she not arrived? Will they not watch the match? Is he, subject, not coming? Has she, the subject, not arrived? Will they is the subject, not watch the match? So just observe and take note of the differences. If you are using the contracted form, it will be attached to the auxiliary verb. But when you are using the full form of not, it will appear after the subject in the question to make negative questions. There are also two ways of turning questions that begin with do, thus, and did to negative questions. One, by adding the contracted form of not to the end of the auxiliary, which are do, does, or did. For example, didn't he lock the door? Don't they like the carvings? That is, if you're using the contracted form, so you add it to the auxiliary. Auxiliaries like do, does, or did. But when you are using the full form, not, N-O-T, you do it by adding the not immediately after the subject of the sentence. Did he not lock the door? Did he not lock the door? When you use the full form, it must come after the subject. But when you use the contracted form, it will come after the auxiliary. Did he not lock the door? Do they not like the carvings? Do they not like the carvings? So these are the ways by which we make negative questions. The topic is grammar, more about negative sentences. And under this topic, we have learned how to make negative sentences. We are looking at how to make negative questions. And I explained to you that there are two ways by which you can form or turn a positive questions into a negative questions. The first rule is by adding the contracted form of not to the end of the auxiliary. For example, isn't he going? Hasn't she arrived? Won't they pick the rice? Another rule is to use the full form not, N-O-T, instead of the contracted form N''T. In this case, we must add the not immediately after the subject of the sentence. For example, is he not coming? Has she not arrived? Will they not watch the match? There are also two ways of turning questions that begin with do. If you have questions that begin with do, does, and did, and you want to turn them to negative questions, the first rule also is that you add the contracted form of not, which is the N''T, to the end of the auxiliary, do, does, or did. Examples, didn't he lock the door? Don't they like the carvings? You can also turn a negative question, a positive question to a negative question, or make them out of positive questions in this other rule too, by using the full form of not. In this case, you add the not immediately after the subject of the sentence. For example, did he not lock the door? Do they not like the carvings? This brings us to the end of the lesson for today. Your assignment will be uploaded on the CTY Model College e-learning portal. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.